If you're like a lot of people, you have some goal that you want to accomplish, but you just can't make yourself do it for whatever reason. You want to read 12 books a year. You want to go to the gym. You want to lose weight. You want to start that business, start that YouTube channel, whatever it is. But for whatever reason, you can't seem to motivate yourself. In this video, I'm going to talk about why this happens because it is very common. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just kind of how our brains are wired and what you can do to overcome that obstacle. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this concept of motivation. Motivation, I think, is actually more controversial than we like to let on because we see it as moralized. We think that if you have high motivation, then you're, good, and low motivation is bad. We categorize people as lazy. We categorize people as not ambitious enough if they don't have motivation. The thing about motivation is it is temporary. It is difficult to hold on to it for a long period of time, and that's normal. There's an author I really like. Her name is Gretchen Rubin, and she wrote a book called The 4 Tendencies. In this book, she outlines these broad categories that she found people falling into. And she doesn't like to use the word motivation. She instead prefers this idea of expectations. She outlines 2 types of expectations. Inner expectations, those are personal goals that you hold yourself accountable to, and outer expectation, and those are things such as work deadlines. They're imposed by other people. Now, this is where the 4 tendency comes in. She categorized people into 4 different categories based on their ability or their inclination to reach inner or outer expectations. But really quickly, let me just introduce myself. My name is Charlotte, and I'm on a mission to become the best version of myself. And I think that if you clicked on this video, you are too. So on this channel, we talk about all things self-development and mindset shifts, how we can really work through some of the challenges that we face in life in a way that's healthy and sustainable and really honors our self-respect. So if that's something that sounds good to you, I'd really love if you could subscribe or just leave a comment. Let me know you exist. It does really help me out on the algorithm. So thank you so much for being here. Let's get into the video. So let's look at this as if it is a grid. And on the x-axis, we have the outer expectations, where all the way to the left, it's low, and all the way to the right, it's high. And then on the y-axis, we have inner expectations, and on the top, it is high, and on the bottom, it is low. In the top right quadrant, we have the golden children, who Rubin calls the upholders. They respond well to both inner and outer expectations. These are the folks that don't have any problem achieving their own goals. They are able to make things happen if they want them to happen. They're rare, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people who write self-help content and work on personal development, they are upholders, and they are writing from the perspective of someone who can make things happen because that's just how they're wired. In the top left quadrant, we have folks who are able to meet their inner expectations, but not so much able to meet outer expectation. Rubin calls those folks questioners. The reason they're called questioners is because they question anything someone else asks them to do. If it doesn't make sense to this person, they're not going to want to do it. They typically fight back on a lot of things. So if their boss asks them to do a project and they think it's a waste of their time or busy work, they're going to push back, or they're not going to be able to get it done because they don't have an inner expectation that this is important work. Now let's go to the bottom right quadrant. These are folks who have trouble meeting their own inner expectations, but they're really good at meeting external expectations. Rubin calls them obligers. The majority of the population, according to Rubin, is an obliger. Obligers are really good at meeting work deadlines. They don't want to let their boss down. They were really gifted academically because they had deadlines set by an external factor. The syllabus, the professor had expectations and they met them. But if they want to go to the gym or if they want to read a book every month, they're having trouble because that's something that they have to do for themselves and there's no one else holding them accountable to that goal. And finally, in the bottom left quadrant, we have what Rubin calls rebels. They don't like meeting their own expectations and they don't like meeting anyone else's either. They rebel against all expectations placed upon them. If you want to figure out which tendency you are, you can go to the website that Rubin has set up with a quiz. She also has the book you can read if that's something you're interested in. One thing to remember is you may fall in between 2 categories and you have tendencies in certain circumstances of two different types of categories that Ruben has laid out. So for example, I would say I'm an obliger, but I do lean towards upholder in certain situations. Like I can hold myself accountable in certain areas of my life. But if you are also an obliger, you may lean towards rebel in certain situations where you don't care about external or internal expectations placed upon yourself. So that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to figure it out. Now let's talk about why these tendencies matter and how it can help you. Once you've figured out what your patterns are, that's when you can start working with your natural inclinations instead of working against them. Based on what your tendencies are, you can find different methods in order to achieve your goals. So let's go through those now. Let's start with the obliger because most people fall into that category. The obliger really responds well to external expectations placed upon them. Obligers need to find ways to seek out accountability partners. The first obvious way would be to find a friend or a family member that could hold them accountable to achieve their goals. One thing to acknowledge, however, is sometimes this doesn't always work for obligers because you're too close to them, and so they don't really feel like an external obligation. So that's a case-by-case basis. Another option obligers have is to announce their goals publicly. It could be on social media. This could be finding a group of people who may have similar goals that is holding you accountable, but they're more like strangers or acquaintances, so they don't feel quite as close to you as a family member is. And this sometimes can create pressure to follow through. So the public commitment could be if you want to read every month of the year, you can join a book club. And so the folks at the book club want you to be able to talk about the book. And so you're actually going to read it because you don't want to let them down. Another tactic is to find a coach or a mentor. And this can get a little expensive, but it is effective. If you put your money where your mouth is, odds are you're going to want to follow through. So an example of this is if you want to go to the gym regularly, you get a personal trainer. If you want to learn a new language, you find a tutor. But again, that can get expensive. So it may be something that you have to save up for. Maybe only one goal at a time can be achieved. It's sort of like that. Another thing that's pretty creative is let's say you want to go to the gym every morning and you find a friend that also wants to go to the same gym as you. Make sure that you have something of theirs that they need in order to work out. So if you're going to lift weights, they need their gloves in order to go, and you have their gloves. So you have to bring them their gloves. This way you would feel bad if you don't go because they won't be able to work out also. And another tactic for obligers is to do it for your future self. If you're able to think of your future self as almost a different person as you, then you may be able to make yourself do the thing for your future self. You can also reframe your goals as duties, and you can do it for your kids. So let's say you want to work out more because you want to be able to play with your kids without getting out of breath or feeling like sore, or you want to set a good example for them in order for them to know that movement is an important part of well-being. There is a productivity YouTuber named Thomas Frank, and he talks about how he wanted to wake up early on time every day. And so he set up an automatic tweet that if he didn't disable it every morning by a certain time, it would tweet out like, if you like this tweet, then I owe you $20. And so that was a way for him to hold himself accountable in order to make sure he woke up on time to disable the automatic tweet. It's a little extreme and you're putting your money where your mouth is, but it worked for him. If you feel like you're an obliger and you figured out tactics to help you do the thing, then please leave them in the comments. I think other people might appreciate that. Now let's talk about how rebels can make themselves do the thing. Rebels are folks who just rebel against themselves and rebel against other people. They don't seem to like structure. They don't like institutions or systems. They feel like they are being restricted in some way when they have to meet any expectation. As a result of this, Ruben recommends that people reframe their goals as a choice. So instead of thinking about what you should do, focus on what you want to do. She also recommends that you give yourself multiple options to achieve that goal. So let's say you want to learn a new skill. Option 1 could be take an online course at your own pace. And if you don't like that, option 2 is join a local workshop or class for hands-on learning. And then option 3 could be watch tutorial videos or practice on your own. And option 4 could be pair up with a friend or a mentor to learn together. Or maybe it's a work task, in which case option 1 is start with the easiest part of the task to build some momentum. Option 2, tackle the most challenging part first to get out of the way. Option 3 could be break the task into smaller chunks and then complete them over several sessions. Or option 4 could be collaborating with a colleague to share the workload. Coming up with different paths to success can make it feel more like a choice, and it's not like you're boxed into one way of doing things. Rebels can also try to use reverse psychology on themselves themselves. So you can set up a situation where someone bets you can't achieve a goal. So if you're a person who feels like if someone says, oh, she can't do that, she's going to fail, and you really thrive under that sort of pressure, like I have to prove them wrong, this is for you. In which case, I would tell you to tell everyone about your goals, every single person that you can think of, because unfortunately, you're going to run into people who will be some Debbie Downers. I'm so sorry to Debbies out there. It's just an alliteration. I'm sure you're lovely. But these folks are going to try to convince you that maybe your goal is a little too lofty, or maybe you shouldn't try to do that. And those people can be motivation for you to prove them wrong. Another thing she suggests is to incorporate some fun and creativity into the process. So one way you can do this is gamify it. There are some apps out there that will help you gamify your to-do list, and that's one way you can go about it if you think that will help. You can also do it yourself by coming up with a point system for every milestone that you have to achieve for whatever you're doing, and then at the end, when you get a lot of points, it could just be satisfaction of getting a certain number of points, or you can actually reward yourself with something that you normally wouldn't do. Another thing you can do is try to make it a competition, and you may be competitive if you identify as a rebel, and so you can use that as a sort of momentum to get you to keep going. So maybe you start a little race with your coworker of who can get their assignment done first. And finally, focus on the short term. Look at the immediate consequences of not doing the thing, and also look at the instant gratifications that are built into the thing. Small wins are really important for rebels because they can see how their actions actually pay off. Finally, let us talk about questioners. Questioners are the folks that will only do something if it makes sense to them. So the first thing you want to do is seek out justification and make sure you really understand why this task is important. Let's say that your spouse asks you to go pick up some groceries on the way home and you are like, we don't need those right now. I can get them tomorrow. I'm so tired, blah, 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 blah. Like you're making a lot of excuses. So you would ask, why do we need them right now? Can I get them another time? And your spouse could say something like, well, my parents are coming over in a few days and I need to start preparing the food now because I wanted to do a marinade and I really need this stuff to get started. Otherwise, I'm going to be stressed. In which case you're like, okay, I get it. I'll do it now. If your boss asks you to complete an assignment that you think is completely unnecessary, then you can ask them why. Ask them, what is the purpose of this? Why does the client need this? What is the value add to what the client is asking us to do? If you understand that it is important, you can make it happen more because it is that is an inner motivation at that point. Let's say a questioner is having trouble working out because their doctor says they have to, but they don't see the purpose of it. They need to figure out ways to internalize that expectation for themselves. They need to do the research, think, why is exercise good for me? Why do I need to engage in this? What is the benefit? And if they really believe that it is good for them, they're going to do it. Questioners are also really good at coming up with workflows and trying to streamline processes. So you may say, we shouldn't do something this way. We should do it my way because you think it is more efficient. Lean into focusing on efficiency. Try to challenge yourself to do something that maybe you don't think is a good idea or something that's worth your time. Try to challenge yourself to do it in a way that you think is more efficient than the way that people are currently doing it. You can also set up challenges with yourself, create personal benchmarks, and really try to meet your own expectations for this thing that someone else wants you to do. So that's it for questioners. I don't think a lot of people watching this video is a questioner, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what the book said. I'm not going to go through upholders because there's really not much to tell them. They know what they're doing and they can make it happen. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. And if you want more content from me, you can check out this video I made about how you can get started with manifestation, which is something I really think everyone should consider doing. It would also be great if you could leave a comment or like this video. It really helps me on the algorithm. But until next time, thank you so much.